The giant was bigger than anything I'd ever encountered. Even my demigod eyes couldn't make out its exact form through the ash and fire, but it was vaguely humanoid, and so huge it could have used the Chrysler building as a baseball bat. The mountain shook with a horrible rumbling, as if the monster were laughing. "It's him," I said. "Typhoon." I was seriously hoping Chiron would say something like, "No, that's our huge friend Leroy. He's going to help us." But no such luck. He simply nodded. "The most horrible monster of all. The biggest single threat the gods have ever faced. He has been freed from under the mountain at last. But this scene is from 2 days ago. Here is what's happening today." Chiron waved his hand and the image changed. I saw a bank of storm clouds rolling across the Midwest plains, lightning flickering, lines of tornadoes destroying everything in their path, ripping up houses and trailers, tossing cars around like matchbox toys. "Monumental floods," an announcer was saying. "5 states declare disaster areas as the freak storm sweeps out east, continuing its path to destruction." The camera zoomed in on a column of storm bearing down on some Midwest city. I couldn't tell which one. Inside the storm I could see the giant, just small glimpses of his true form. A smoky arm, a dark clawed hand the size of a city block. His angry roar rolled across the plains like a nuclear blast. Other smaller forms darted through the clouds, circling the monster. I saw flashes of light, and I realized the giant was trying to swat them. I squinted and thought I saw a golden chariot flying into the blackness. Then some kind of huge bird, a monstrous owl, dived in to attack the giant. "Are those the gods?" I asked. "Yes, Percy," Chiron said. "They have been fighting him for days now, trying to slow him down. But Typhoon is marching forward, towards New York, towards Olympus." I let that sink in. "How long until he gets here?" "Oh, unless the gods can stop him, perhaps 5 days. Most of the Olympians are there, except your father, who has a war to fight on his own." "But then who's guarding Olympus?" Connor Stoll shook his head. "If Typhoon gets to New York, it won't matter who's guarding Olympus." I thought about Kronos' word on the ship. "I would love to see the terror in your eyes when you realize how I will destroy Olympus." Was this what he was talking about? An attack by Typhoon? It was sure terrifying enough. But Kronos was always fooling us, misdirecting our attention. This seemed too obvious for him. In my dream, the Golden Titan had talked about several more challenges to come, as if Typhoon were only the first. "It's a trick," I said. "We have to warn the gods. Something else is going to happen." Chiron looked at me gravely. "Something worse than Typhoon? I hope not." "We have to defend Olympus," I insisted. "Kronos has another attack planned." "He did," Travis Stoll reminded me. "But you sank his ship." Everyone was looking at me. They wanted some good news. They wanted to believe that at least I'd given them a little bit of hope. I glanced at Annabeth. I could tell we were thinking the same thing. What if the Princess Andromeda was a ploy? What if Kronos let us blow up the ship so we'd lower our guard? I wasn't going to say that in front of Selena. Her boyfriend had sacrificed himself for that mission. "Maybe you're right," I said, though I didn't believe it. I tried to imagine how things could get much worse. The gods were in the Midwest fighting a huge monster that had almost defeated them once before. Poseidon was under siege and losing a war against the sea titan Oceanus. Kronos was still out there somewhere. Olympus was virtually undefended. The demigods at Camp Half-Blood were on our own, with a spy in our midst. Oh, and according to the ancient prophecy, I was going to die when I turned 16, which happened to be in 5 days, the exact time Typhoon was supposed to hit New York. Almost forgot that. "Well," Chiron said, "I think that's enough for one night." He waved his hand and the steam dissipated. The stormy battle of Typhoon and the gods disappeared. "That's an understatement," I muttered. And the war council adjourned. Chapter 4. We Burn a Metal Shroud. I dreamed of Rachel Elizabeth Dare, that she was throwing darts at my picture. She was standing in her room. Okay, back up. I have to explain that Rachel doesn't have a room. She has the top floor of her family's mansion, which is a renovated brownstone in Brooklyn. Her room is a huge loft with industrial lighting and floor-to-ceiling windows. It's about twice as big as my mom's apartment. Some alternative rock was blaring from her paint-covered Boss docking system. As far as I could tell, Rachel's only rule about music was that no 2 songs on her iPod could sound the same, and they all had to be strange. She wore a kimono, and her hair was all frizzy like she'd been sleeping. Her bed was messed up. Sheets hung over a bunch of artist easels, dirty clothes and an old energy bar wrapper was strewn across the floor. But when you've got a room that big, the mess doesn't look so bad. Out of the windows, you could see the entire nighttime skyline of Manhattan.